Hi, everyone. Today, I want to go over with you what I believe to be the single greatest thing we all can do when preparing for the interview. I'm Ed Clementi, and I spent over 2 decades navigating the world of financial services. I walked through the doors as an executive assistant. 9.5 years later, a global managing director, navigating all the obstacles and politics and glass ceilings that you can imagine comes with that, giving me a very unique perspective in how to navigate such a journey. So I've taken all that experience, all the failures, all the successes, to help people have the most successful, rewarding career possible. And if you've been following along my journey, I do believe that leadership is the hack, that it all comes down to leadership. When we embrace leadership and what it can bring to ourselves and to others, good things happen. It was definitely the secret to my success. But first, we have to land the job. I'm going to take you through how to prepare for the most complete interview, founded on one single thing that we all can do that I believe will change the whole dynamic of the interview. How confident you are showing up, how clearly you articulate your answers. So let's get into it. Once you find out that you've been selected for an interview, it's time to get to work. It's time to get to work on understanding the ins and outs of the job description. What are they looking for? What are they looking to solve for? It's time to get to work to understand as much as you can about the company. There's so much information available. Look up the company, read their mission statement, understanding what the core values are and what they're trying to accomplish. What is their mission? Look up the leadership. Look at the CEO letters. Maybe there's some videos out there. But the bottom line is, get yourself prepared by understanding who is interviewing you, the company, the leadership, and what you believe the role is, and the impact that this role is supposed to be bringing towards the goals and the mission of the company. This sets the groundwork. Once you feel like you're in a position where you can say, I think I understand the mission of the company, why it was founded. I've listened to some videos of the CEO talking or other leaders talking. I looked at the role and I do see why they would need such a role and what the impact is that they're supposed to be having in order to achieve the goals and the mission of the company. Doing this research will also surface some questions that you might want to jot down so that you can understand even better what the mission is, what the ask is, what the need is with this particular role. And once you have that, that sets up what I believe to be the single most important thing anyone can do when getting ready to prepare themselves for an interview. And that is the mindset of mutual selection. Let me say that again. The mindset of mutual selection. I've been around a long time. I've been on both sides of the table, the interviewee and the interviewer. And now I'm helping people all over the globe get ready for interviews. And I see one thing that's very common. They go into that interview hoping and wishing that this person likes them. This person sees the value. This person understands their experience. This person understands how much you want the job. That mindset puts you at an immediate disadvantage. The nerves start getting elevated. You want to make sure everything's perfect. You maybe overemphasize certain things so that they get the point. You might be a little bit hesitant to highlight a weakness when specifically asked for your weaknesses. But if you change the mindset to this, I'm going to go in prepared and I'm going to put my best foot forward. But I really hope I like them too. I really hope I can see on the walls the culture and the leadership and I can feel it from the person I meet. I really hope that the role speaks to me. I really hope that I got the mission right and that speaks to my values. I hope that I want to be there with these people as much as I hope that they want me to be with them. The mindset of mutual selection starts to even the playing field because it is supposed to be like that. We shouldn't be putting ourselves in a position where even if we don't feel like we like the person that interviewed us, even if some of the things that are said don't connect or align with our values, we still hope and pray that they choose us. That's how long, messy, uncomfortable situations begin. Let's say you get the job, but you saw the red flags, you heard the red flags, but you get the job. You were so happy to get selected, you go and take the job. And as you go along the course of that journey, you will undoubtedly say, I don't like this. And I knew it. I knew it from the beginning. I knew it from the interview. And what you end up doing is you compromise on the two things we should never compromise on, which is you've given up time, and no doubt about it, if it becomes a toxic situation, you've given up health. So adopt the idea of mutual selection. So if you go in fully prepared, you did your homework, and you go in with a mindset of mutual selection, which is, I sure hope that I like them as much as I hope that they see the value I can bring, that levels the playing field. It brings more confidence to the table. You are much more willing to ask questions that you want the answers to. You're much more willing to be a little bit vulnerable with what your weaknesses are, or some of the things you had to overcome in the past when you get asked those questions. That is a differentiator when it comes to preparing for the interview. Energy. Bring energy into the room. Get a good night's sleep and walk into that room or that Zoom call bright-eyed. They say bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Answer questions with passion. Listen intently. And that all comes from self-belief. Confident, walking in with a confident smile, a strong handshake, answering questions in the right tone, eye contact, sitting up straight. Energy. People want to be around people who have good, positive energy. They can feel it. It's infectious. Why? Because energy gets things done. Bring energy to the room. Next, your story. Know your story. It amazes me how few people know their story and can articulate it in a powerful, concise way. They say, I have my resume. Don't go into a room and expect to read off your resume. Be ready to answer the question, tell me about yourself. And that's when you need to call on your story. Meaning, what led up to where you are today? You started in a specific industry, you saw something you liked, you grabbed onto it, you got another opportunity, you grabbed onto that, or you realized this thing wasn't for you, or you started in this area and you realized shortly thereafter it wasn't for you and you pivoted in this direction and then that worked out. All the ups and downs in a concise way. Get to know your story. The ins and outs. What is your story? If you were going to write a one-pager about where you started and where you are, and you were going to highlight some of the important downs, some of the important lessons learned and how you recovered, and some of the important successes and how that catapulted you to where you are today, and most important, the whys. Get to know your story in and out. See, the person on the other side of the table that's interviewing you, if they're doing it right, they're not just trying to assess your skill sets and your capabilities, but they're also trying to assess the person that you are. And the best way they get that is to hear your story. Because in that story, if it's told right, if it's understood, if it's articulated right, with the ups and the downs, and the obstacles you've overcome, and the pivots you had to make, and the successes you've had, your story, who you are, will come out. But first, you have to know it. You have to own it. You have to take pride in that story. Know your story. And your story is not just the words on the paper of a resume. There's so much more around what made that resume. There's so much more around what built the lines that are on your resume. Know your journey. Know your story. Have pride in your story, both the ups and the downs, so that you can clearly articulate your journey. And that leads me to the next thing. If you truly understand your journey and you've done the work to simplify it in a powerful way, what you will have unearthed, undoubtedly, is clear examples of the value you are prepared to bring. Because if you've gone through your story of the ups, of the downs, and the lessons learned, and the pivots you've had to make, and the successes you've had, and you understand why this success, why not that, why this success happened, you're going to start to pinpoint your value proposition. I'm a great leader, or I'm a great communicator. I know how to simplify. I know how to influence people. I'm quick to make a decision. I understand how to prioritize. I do the extra work. Your value proposition will start to get clearer and clearer and clearer. Are you just someone who refuses to stay down when you get knocked down? Does your story tell that? Are you someone who is great at de-escalating situations and people just love working with you and that's how you're able to mobilize people? Your story will tell you that. That's why it's so important to know your story for you, just as much as the other person on the other side of the table interviewing you. When you know the value, the capabilities that you can bring, hard and soft value. Hard value examples include commercial results, operational wins, execution. And then there's the soft side of things, how you collaborate and work with others, influence, simplification, energy, leadership. When you know the value you bring, know your capabilities, it comes through. The other person can feel it. That's the only way, that's the best way that they come to believe it. If you don't believe it, if you don't say it with conviction, if you don't say it with energy, how do you expect anyone on the other side of the table to believe it? Get them to believe it through your own belief. So we've prepared, we've gotten our mindset right, we're entering the room with energy, we've solidified our story, we've unearthed our value, our capabilities, both hard and soft capabilities, and we're able to communicate those things. Where does that leave us? That leaves us with receipts. So, have we done the work to write down some very clear examples that proves our capabilities out, our value proposition out? Make sure to write down a list of areas where your hard skills paid off in some way and be able to give some concrete, simplified examples. Don't go all the way into the detail unless specifically asked, but some simple, easy to understand concrete examples of how your hard skills, commercial results, came to fruition, and how your soft skills, your leadership abilities, brought in bottom line impact. Have those examples ready. Write them down, 3 to 5 on each side, and just call on 1 or 2 of the best when asked. You see how we're taking the interviewer on your journey with great energy that's coming from your belief in yourself. And then we get to your why. Why are you here? What has brought you to this point? Why do you see yourself making this move? And be sure you know the answer to that yourself. With everything you've been through, with your whole story, with what you bring to the table, why have you gotten to a point where you've made a conscious decision to make a move? Be clear on that. And don't be afraid of that. Own it. Is it because that you've decided for X number of years past, you were learning, you were figuring things out, like what your strengths and weaknesses are, what's your leadership style? And now that you've gotten a lot of those things figured out, you want to make sure that where you are is completely aligned with the purpose that you figured out is your purpose. Maybe that's the reason, or maybe it's a bunch of other reasons, but make sure you understand your why. Why are you here today? What brings you to this place? Because what you're telling the interviewer is your motivation for being in the seat that you're in at that very moment. And they want to understand your why, but you should understand your why. More than anybody, understand your why. Is it you have come to a place where you feel like you're ready to ensure that you're with the right company, with the right mission, that matches with your capabilities and purpose? Maybe that's the answer, but know your why. And then you find yourself feeling really good about the conversation that you have had for maybe 30, 45, or 60 minutes, depending on how it goes. You showed up with energy, you showed up with intention, you know your value, you know your story, you know your why, and then you most likely get an opportunity to ask any questions yourself. Now, this is where you bring yourself all the way back to remember the mindset we talked about, which is mutual selection. You know you're great. You know you can bring value. You're excited to do so. But is this the right place for you? Do you feel the energy on the other side? Do you feel they're going to be as invested in you and your career as you are in them and their mission? Do you feel that? Look around on the walls. How do they set up the environment? Do people look happy coming in? Is the energy good? You're trying to assess that situation because you don't want to lose the two most important things, time and health. Time spent in a bad job, no good. Time spent in a toxic culture, no good from a time and a health perspective. So mutual selection, that's the mindset. So what do we ask? You don't get an infinite number of questions. You're not sitting there and going to have another hour to ask questions of them. But I have a couple of favorite questions that are knock their socks off kind of questions that if ever I was asked those questions, those are the questions where I would say, wow, this person gets it. This person is thinking forward. This person is trying to really understand impact that they can make and understand what success means to me or this organization. Questions like, where do teams get stuck here? And how have your best people gotten them unstuck? That's a good one. Or maybe my all-time favorite, but this gives you so much insight if asked correctly. If you were to make the decision to hire me and bring me into your team, fast forward 1 year from now, what would have to be true for you to say, wow, that was a great hire? I want you to think about that. What you're asking for is them to articulate in a very clear and concise way what success looks like. But not just success, but phenomenal success. You're asking what would have to be true for them to say 1 year from now, wow, that was a great hire. If anybody asked me that question, I'm thinking, number one, that's a phenomenal reset in terms of making sure we're clear on what we're looking for and what we need from this person that we're going to hopefully bring onto this team from an impact standpoint. But it also tells you, should you get the job, exactly what great success looks like and enables you to plan accordingly. So you've asked a phenomenal question. You've gotten hopefully great answers that should you get the job, you're set up really well for success. And then it's time to wrap up the meeting and they say, it's great to meet you. Thank you for coming in. And you're not overdoing it. You're just simply saying, thank you so much for the conversation. I really appreciate your time and consideration. Hope to hear from you soon. That's it. And you walk out. And then there's the follow-up email. It amazes me how many people do not do this. The first thing you should do after you wrap this up is go back to wherever you can, sit down, take the notes on the things that were said, the things you liked, the things that resonated with you and you really liked, and craft a very concise yet differentiating thank you mail. Meaning, just wanted to say thank you once again. I truly enjoyed the conversation. What especially resonated was this and that. And after hearing more about your mission and goals, how you hope the person in this role can make an impact towards that mission and those goals, I'm confident in my ability to do so. Thank you. And then that's it. There you have it. An interview that will differentiate you. Differentiate you in terms of quality and content that you bring to the table. Differentiate you in terms of the mindset, the mutual selection mindset. Differentiate you in terms of energy. Differentiate you in terms of confidence and self-belief if you're considering all the things I talked about in this video. So let's go over some do's and don'ts. Do. Prepare like a peer. not a petitioner. Remember, mutual selection. Be visibly energized. Tell your story like you own it and believe it and take pride in it. Map the value you bring to the needs they have. Prove you can with the receipts, your accomplishments. And ask leadership questions. And ask questions that tell you what success looks like, that tells you what's important to them right from the start. And then close strong and confident. And here are some don'ts. And as a reminder, here are some don'ts. Do not recite your resume. Do not sell hype without the receipts. Because when they ask you to prove it and you're not able to, that is no good. Do not overqualify every answer. Keep it simple, concise. If you're asked to go deeper, then go deeper. Only go as deep as they ask you to go. Do not sound desperate. And that comes from within. Remember the mutual selection. This is why I'm saying the number one thing you should remember from this video is that mindset. That is the great differentiator. Let them know that you are the solution to their problem. You believe you are the solution to their problem. It starts there. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, that's great, Ed, but whenever I go into interviews, it doesn't go that smooth. I don't get to dictate how it goes because there are all sorts of hard questions that get thrown at me. So I got you. I put another video together that goes through the top 10 toughest questions that everybody gets in an interview and how to answer them. And it's very much aligned to this video in terms of how to prepare and approach an interview with the right mindset for success. It will go through the top 10 questions that a lot of people think are the most difficult to answer and how to answer them genuinely, honestly, and effectively. Questions like, what's your biggest weakness? Why are you leaving your current job? Describe a conflict that you've had with a colleague. I go through these questions and more in this next video. I hope you enjoy. And if you like this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. It will really help my growing channel. I'm trying to take all my experience, all my lessons learned, all the things that enabled me to be successful in a very tough industry, in a very tough city, starting from the very bottom, and help as many people succeed as possible. And I know it's a scary time with AI and the college value proposition diminishing, but these things that I'm talking about, showing up with the right mindset, showing up with belief in yourself, learning leadership techniques and strategies, they are going nowhere. We will need them forever. Learn and embrace these leadership concepts, and you will separate yourself. You will differentiate yourself. Until next time.